Professor Ryan Bendita, and I will be discussing about information and research of risk when it comes to professional business industry. So in every profession, there are rules or ethics that should be adhered to. Failure to follow protocols may sometimes lead to the possibility of being sued or be subjected to legal action. Malpractice is one of the most common risks inherent in the job of a professional, whether it be a lawyer, a doctor, barbershop, or others. The malpractice in medical profession covers areas such as legal, medical insurance, government entity, and medical care. It was mentioned in a study that the patients who are injured due to medical malpractice sometimes do not get enough compensation. The recent crisis on medical practice did not result to an effective reform on the policy or did not modify the fundamental incentives to stakeholders. The cost of malpractice differs by profession, whether it can be a nurse, a doctor, a physical therapist, and it depends on the amount of coverage. In the bottom, it is recommended that if a doctor is being sued, he or she should contact the insurer immediately in order to remediate the problem. Unnecessary delays could mean judgment to the doctor regardless of merit. Talking about the second step, it is important to only talk to the insurer or defense attorney because involving other people who are not part of the situation could potentially make them a witness and you jeopardizing any defense. When a medical professional is being sued for malpractice, there are some steps to be followed. So the first step would be contact insurer as soon as there is a claim. Discuss claim only with defense attorney. Comply with authorized requests to release patient records and other steps. Let's go on to the next slide. People who practice law have to conform with ethics. Just for being in the profession itself as a lawyer, lawyers are expected to adhere to certain standard. If a lawyer fails to perform the job and resulted to a financial loss to a client, the lawyer could be liable for damages. Aside from what has already mentioned, there are risks that are present in jobs under the professional industry. For an instance, in the barbershop, there could be health risks to customers. Transmission of blood-borne pathogens may be possible through nicks and cuts caused by sharp objects such as razor. Some chemicals that are used to treat hair may result to allergic or adverse reactions on consumers. Barbers also need to follow some sanitation standards to make sure customers' safety is taken care of. When the pandemic happened, the barbershop industry took a hit. Establishments were closed for months. When it started to open back up, it did not operate at full capacity. Additionally, it had to follow the Centers for Disease and Control guidelines or CD, along with other industries such as healthcare to maintain, example, social distance of 6 feet, wearing a mask, and to constantly do hand hygiene. There are several health and safety procedures that need to be followed in a certain profession. For instance, in the barbershop or hair grooming industry, safety precautions should be practiced when dealing with hazardous materials. There could be skin conditions that could arise, such as dermatitis. Dermatitis causes the skin to become red, dry, and blistered. Too much hand washing could also lead to dryness. It is important to keep moisturizers in handy. In professional industry, there could be times when consumers become argumentative. It is important to know protocols such as when it's alright to refuse service if needed. On my next slide, I will be discussing this table or figure 1.1. So there are statistics that I gathered about professional industry. So the percent of jobs in the United States back in 2004, it was cost 14,209, and 2014 is 18,057.4, and in 2024 it's estimated to be at 21,852.2. The percent of revenue compared to the gross domestic product is equal to $4,504.8 billion. So when talking about GDP or gross domestic product, it is one of the acronyms mentioned in the presentation. It refers to the value of goods and services produced in the country. What can GDP numbers tell you? It could determine the growth of an economy, how the state is performing compared to others, and what industries are performing well or worse. As one of my fellow classmates already mentioned, it is estimated that there's going to be a 10% to 20% growth in the job industry or professional industry in this coming 2031. The percent of growth and decline within the past 5 years. So this is going to be estimated at 8.24 average growth rate. The percent of growth of stock prices for the past 5 years compared to the changes in stock market in professional industry is in negative 46.08% year to date. Percent of entry of new participants and exit of previous sector. There are barriers involving, example, like it's hard to come into the professional industry because it requires education, passing licensure exams, and so on and so forth. So if you're not qualified and you were not able to pass the exam, so you're not allowed to practice at a certain job. The average age of workers and number of female executives. Again, you want the company to be diverse. Like it's a mixture of different races, demographics, sex, because we want to also a proper combination of female and to male ratio, right? So the more diverse a company is, the better they can do with planning and making decisions. And lastly, the sustainability efforts, attaining certifications for sustainable performance in accordance with NSF and ANSI